President Joe Biden is getting ready to deliver his first State of the Union address, and it's already undergoing some major rewrites. Tonight's remarks were initially going to tout strides made in the COVID-19 pandemic and next steps in his domestic agenda. Now a focus of his remarks highlighting the brutal attack on Ukraine and sanctions on Moscow try to stop their advance. And joining us now to discuss this big speech is Stephen Caliendo, professor of political science at North Central College. Professor Caliendo, as always, thank you so much for being here.
Good to see you, Tia.
We have a lot to talk about today. What do you expect the president will say about Ukraine, and how important is this moment for calming an anxious nation during what is a fraught geopolitical moment?
You're right that a couple of weeks ago, this probably wasn't going to be a centerpiece of what he hoped to discuss. He was going to talk about COVID. He's going to talk about the economy, jobs creation, et cetera, his agenda, parts of his agenda that he got passed and parts that he has yet to get past, campaign promises yet to be fulfilled. But he is going to have to spend considerable time talking about Russian aggression in Ukraine and what the role of NATO and a world allegiance will do. This is not a similar type of a war speech where we're thinking about sending U.S. troops, but nonetheless, as a commander-in-chief of the armed forces in the United States, he is part of a global coalition to help stop Russian aggression. He's going to have to speak about that.
Professor, you know, one thing that the president can't avoid is definitely talking about the economy right now. Many Americans very pessimistic about it all. How do you think the president will address that tonight?
I think we'll get a healthy dose of spin, Tia, as we would expect. There's lots of positive indicators about the economy in terms of jobs creation, unemployment rate, et cetera. But there's also lots of ominous signs as well, including, of course, I think foremost among Americans' minds is inflation that we haven't seen at this level for some time. And so we're going to certainly have to hear something from the president about whether he has plans to address that through policy, or whether or not he has ideas about how the Fed ought to be addressing this. But there's a lot of complicated aspects to this, and the degree to which he's able to put that in a digestible form will go a long way toward how this speech is covered tonight.
In terms of the poll numbers, we know the president not looking too good in terms of those numbers right now. Midterm elections are really going to start ramping up here over the next few weeks. And if poll numbers are to be believed, it could be bad for Democrats. What do you think the president will say to rally the troops and get voters excited for his agenda once again?
His poll numbers are terrible. They're among the worst of a president heading into a State of the Union address, and that's got to be on his mind. We also know historically, of course, Tia, that presidents' parties typically lose seats in Congress during midterm elections. That's especially true during a president's first term in office. And so we can expect that based on historical patterns. So Joe Biden's got to make the case for Democrats, got to make the case for democratic policies, got to make the case for what the country was like when the Republicans were in charge, and how he sees that as problematic and doesn't want to go back to that. And also campaign promises that he made and was elected on that he knows will have an almost impossible time getting through. He has a hard enough time getting them through with the Democrats in slim control of the Senate and in slim control of the House. And so if he loses that, any chances of him capitalizing on those promises that the American people selected for him a year ago are not going to, they won't bear fruit.
Well, I'll be tuning in tonight to that State of the Union address. Professor Caliendo, thank you so much for joining us here on First at 4.